My mom always told me my dad left us, but the truth I found in an old photo album broke me completely. I found the photo album on a Tuesday. It was one of those unremarkable spring afternoons where time seems to move like honey. Mom had asked me to clean out the attic before the estate sale. She was downsizing to a condo in Florida, leaving behind the only home I'd ever known. At 32, I should have been past the sentimentality of childhood bedrooms and dusty corners, but every box I opened felt like excavating my own bones. The album was wedged behind a water-damaged box of Christmas decorations, its leather cover warped and faded to the color of old bruises. I almost tossed it in the donation pile, without looking. Almost. But something about the weight of it in my hands made me pause. I sat down on an old trunk, dust motes dancing in the shaft of light from the window, and opened it. The first photo punched the air from my lungs. There was Mom, young and radiant in a yellow sundress, her dark hair catching the sunlight. She was laughing at the camera, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. But it was the man beside her that made my hand start shaking. He had his arm around her shoulders, gazing down at her with such naked adoration that it felt obscene to witness, even across decades. My father. It had to be. I'd seen exactly 3 photos of my father in my entire life. Mom kept them in a small envelope in her nightstand, a driver's license photo, a blurry shot of him in a coffee shop, and one wedding picture where his face was partially obscured by shadow. That's all I have, she told me when I was 12 and desperate for more. He didn't like being photographed. The story had been gospel in our house. Dad left when I was 6 months old. Walked out one morning for cigarettes and never came back. Mom had struggled, worked 3 jobs, built a life for us through sheer force of will. He was the villain, the abandoner, the cautionary tale she'd woven through my entire childhood. Don't trust men like your father, Maya. Don't let anyone make you small. But this album told a different story. Page after page, photo after photo, all dated, all carefully captioned in handwriting I didn't recognize. Robert and Sarah, spring 1992. Robert. I'd never even known his full name. Mom only ever called him her father with the same tone she'd use for the trash. There he was pushing Mom on a swing, both of them grinning. There they were painting what I recognized as the nursery that became my bedroom, his face smeared with yellow paint. A photo of him assembling a crib, tongue poking out in concentration. Mom asleep on his shoulder on a couch I remembered from early childhood. And then me. My father holding me in the hospital, tears streaming down his face. My father giving me a bottle, my tiny hand wrapped around his finger. My father asleep in a chair with me on his chest, both of us bathed in morning light. The caption read, Robert and Maya, 3 months old. He hasn't put her down in days. 3 months old. 6 months old. 8 months old. The photos continued well past the point where Mom said he disappeared. My hands were trembling so badly, I could barely turn the pages. There was a first birthday photo. Me in a high chair, cake smeared across my face, my father laughing as I grabbed his nose. The date on the back, April 1993. I would have been 1. But Mom said he left when I was 6 months old. November 1992. The photos continued. Me at 18 months, toddling toward my father's outstretched arms in our backyard. Me at 2 years old, asleep on his lap during what looked like a Christmas gathering. Me at what must have been 2.5, helping him rake leaves. The last photo in the album stopped me cold. It was taken in front of our house, this house, the one I'd grown up in. Spring, based on the blooming dogwood. My father was kneeling on the front walk, his hands on my shoulders. I looked about 3 years old, wearing overalls and tiny rain boots. We were both smiling at the camera. But it was the caption that destroyed me. Last day with our girl. Robert, Maya, May 1995. I'll never forgive myself. May 1995. I was 3 years old. He didn't leave when I was 6 months old. He was there for 3 years of my life, 3 years I had no memory of, 3 years Mom had somehow erased from existence. The handwriting suddenly clicked into place. I'd seen it before on birthday cards that arrived every year until I was 12. Cards Mom always intercepted, opened, then threw away while telling me they were from distant relatives who barely knew me. I remembered one birthday, maybe I was 9, catching a glimpse of a card before Mom snatched it away. Love always, Dad, it had said. He doesn't get to call himself that, Mom had said, ripping it to pieces. He doesn't get to waltz back in with cards and think it means anything. Waltz back in. The phrase echoed differently now. I sat in the attic as the afternoon light shifted to gold, then amber, then gray. I went through the album 3 more times, memorizing every image, every date, every caption. By the time I heard Mom's car in the driveway, I'd made a decision. I found her in the kitchen, unpacking groceries. Mom, I said, setting the album on the counter between us. Tell me the truth. She froze, a can of tomatoes suspended in midair. For a moment, she looked like she might deny everything. Then her shoulders sagged, and she seemed to age a decade in seconds. Where did you find that? The attic. May 1995, Mom. I was 3 years old. She set down the groceries slowly, not meeting my eyes. Maya. You told me he left when I was 6 months old. You've told me that my entire life. But he was here, wasn't he? He was here and you what? You made him leave. It's not that simple. Then make it simple. My voice cracked. I deserve to know why I don't remember my own father. Why you erased 3 years of my life. Why you made me believe I was abandoned by someone who clearly loved me. Mom sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her 60 years. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. He was sick, Maya. Sick.